If you're thinking about moving to Saanich BC, there's something you really need to understand before you do that. Saanich is one of those places that sounds simple from the outside, and a lot of people hear Saanich and think, okay, it's just another suburb beside the Victoria Core. But that's actually where people get it completely wrong. Saanich is not just one neighborhood, it is not just one lifestyle, and it's not one price point. And it is definitely not one of those places where every area feels the same. You can live in a quiet, family neighborhood near schools and parks, and you can live close to the University of Victoria. You can live near the ocean in Cordova Bay or Cadboro Bay. You can live in a more central area close to Uptown, Tillicum, or the Gorge. Or you can be in a rural feeling pocket with large properties, farms, trees, and a completely different pace of life. And all of that is still Saanich. So if you think about moving here, this video is going to break down 10 things you need to know before making that decision. Because Saanich can be an amazing place to live. I should know, I live in Saanich. But if you choose the wrong pocket for your lifestyle, your commute, your budget, or your long-term plans, you may realize pretty quickly that the version of Saanich you had in your head is not the version you actually moved into. I'm G, I'm a local realtor based here in Victoria, BC, and I help buyers and sellers all across Greater Victoria. So if you have any questions, reach out. My info's on the screen. Now let's get started. The first thing you should know is that Saanich is a lot bigger and more spread out than many people expect. So when someone tells me they want to move to Saanich, the first thought is usually, okay, but what kind of Saanich are you picturing? Because saying you want to move to Saanich does not really narrow things down enough. If you are picturing, say, a quiet residential neighborhood with older homes, mature trees, families, parks, and schools nearby, you might be thinking about, say, Gorge or Royal Oak, which is where I live. But if you are picturing a more upscale, private, tree-lined area with larger homes and winding streets, Broadmead might be closer to what you have in mind. And if you're picturing ocean views, beaches, and a quieter coastal lifestyle, then Cordova Bay or Cadboro Bay might be more your style. And if you're picturing convenience, transit, shopping, and being close to the city, then areas like Uptown, Tillicum, the Gorge, or the Shelburne corridor might make more sense. And this is why Saanich can be kind of tricky. For people moving here from the outside the area, they may not realize this. Online, two homes can both say Saanich, but they might offer completely different lifestyles. One could feel central and connected, but another could feel quiet and suburban. Another could feel almost rural, and another could be close to, say, the ocean at a much higher price point. So, before you start seriously looking at homes, you want to think at least about one thing, the name Saanich, and more about your actual day-to-day life. So before you start seriously looking at homes, you want to think less about the name Saanich and more about your actual day-to-day life. Where are you going to work? Are you commuting downtown? Are you working, say, from home? Do you want to walk to coffee or groceries? And are schools nearby important? Or do you care more about, say, privacy, convenience, a bigger yard, but maybe you want newer construction, or you may want an older home? Those answers matter way more than just saying, I want Saanich. Because Saanich is not, say, one lifestyle. It is a collection of very different communities, and picking the right one that makes most sense for you makes the difference. The second thing that confuses a lot of people is actually the name. You have Saanich, Central Saanich, and North Saanich, which are not the same place. They sound like they should be all just be like different parts of one big area, but they're actually separate municipalities with very different lifestyles. The district of Saanich is directly beside the main part of Victoria. It's more central and it connects to places like Victoria Core, Oak Bay, View Royal, and the rest of the core area. But Central Saanich is further up the peninsula. That includes areas like Brentwood Bay, Saanich, and Tanner Ridge. Then you have North Saanich, which is even further north, closer to Sydney, the airport, the ferries, and the more rural or estate-style properties are up there. So when you are searching online, this matters a lot. You might see a listing and think, oh, this is in Saanich. That could work. But then they realize it's actually Central Saanich or North Saanich. That may still be a great fit, but it's not the same lifestyle. If you're trying to be, say, close to downtown Victoria, UVic, Uptown, Commutes, Tillicum, or the hospital, then the district of Saanich may be the area you really are thinking about. But if you want a quieter peninsula lifestyle, more space, farmland nearby, easy access to Sydney, or to be close to, say, the airport and ferries, then Central Saanich or North Saanich might be worth considering. None of these are better or worse than each other. They're just different. The mistake is assuming they are interchangeable, because really, they're not. Your commute changes, your shopping habits change, the school options may change, and your price point definitely changes. Even the feel of your weekends can change. So before you fall in love with a home, make sure you know exactly which Saanich you're looking at. Number 3, one of the best things about Saanich is also one of the things that makes it harder to understand. It has a little bit of everything. There are parts of Saanich where you feel very close to the city. You have shopping, transit, restaurants, schools, and rec centers, and you can get downtown fairly quickly. But then there are parts where it feels more suburban, quieter streets, single-family homes, yards, parks, and a more residential family feel. But you also have coastal pockets like Cordova Bay and Cadboro Bay, where the lifestyle feels like you're more connected to the ocean. Those areas can feel calmer, more scenic, but also at oftentimes more expensive. And there's also rural Saanich, where you can have larger properties, farms, equestrian-style properties, or homes that feel like they are very far from the city, even though you're still in Great Victoria. That variety is a major part of the appeal, but it also means you cannot judge Saanich just by one thing. For example, someone living near, say, Uptown may have a very different experience than someone living in Broadmead. Someone in Gorge may have a different routine than someone in Cordova Bay. Then you have someone in rural Saanich may feel like they live in a completely different world than someone near Tillicum. So when people ask, is Saanich a good place to live? The answer is usually yes. But the better question is, which part of Saanich fits your lifestyle? Because Saanich can give you convenience, but it can also give you quiet. It can give you access to downtown, but it can also give you space. It can give you neighborhoods close to schools and parks, but it can also give you waterfront and view properties. The key understanding is, what trade-offs are you making? If you want to move to somewhere where you can walk to everything, some parts of Saanich will work better than others. But if you want privacy, you might have to give up some convenience. Or if you want ocean proximity, the price may jump. And if you want a large lot, the home may be older or farther from the Victoria core. That's why Saanich is not a place where you just get to pick a home based on the photos. You really have to understand the lifestyle around the home. The fourth thing is to know is that Saanich can be expensive. A lot of people assume that if you avoid Oak Bay or the downtown Victoria area, Saanich automatically is more affordable. And sometimes, depending on the area and the property type, Saanich can offer a better value. But Saanich also has some of the most desirable neighborhoods in all of Great Victoria. You have Cordova Bay, Broadmead, Telmont Point, Cadboro Bay, parts of Gordon Head, Queenswood, and certain pockets of Saanich East can get very expensive. And that is because you are often getting a combination that buyers really want. You get to be close to the Victoria core, you have established neighborhoods, and you have parks and schools. Plus, you have access to UVic, Commutes, shopping, recreation, and in some areas, the ocean. And in certain pockets, you also get bigger lots, privacy, views, or a more peaceful residential feel. And that combination is valuable. So if you are moving here expecting a big discount just because it is not technically the city of Victoria, you may be surprised. And the price also depends heavily on what you are looking for. A condo near, say, the Shelburne corridor is one conversation compared to a townhome near Royal Oak or a detached home in Gordon Head. All are different. You may be looking for a larger renovated home, say in Broadmead, compared to a property with a view in Cordova Bay. They're all Saanich, but they are not the same market. This is where buyers get frustrated. They see one home and that seems expensive and think, is all Saanich like this? And not always. But you have to compare similar homes in similar areas. A renovated home on a quiet street near, say, good schools is not going to be priced the same way as a dated home on a busier road. A home near the ocean or the water is not going to be priced the same as a home, say, further inland. And a newer townhouse is not going to be judged in the same way as an older detached home with a suite. So, when you're looking at Saanich, the price only makes sense once you understand the pocket. And that is why local context matters so much. Now, number 5. A big part of Saanich's appeal is that many of the neighborhoods feel established. You get mature trees, older streets, larger yards in some areas, and homes that actually have character. It does not feel like everything was built yesterday. For a lot of buyers, that is exactly what they want. They don't want to be part of a brand new subdivision where every home looks the same. They want a neighborhood that feels settled. They want a real yard. They want trees. They want a street that has been around for a few decades. But the trade-off is that older homes come with older home questions. And this is where buyers have to be careful. A house can look great in the photos. It can have nice staging, fresh paint, updated flooring, and a beautiful backyard. But that does not always tell you the full story. With older homes, the important stuff is often behind the walls, under the house, or say around the property. You want to understand how the home has been maintained over time. Has it been updated properly, or just made to look nice? Are there bigger ticket items coming up, like the roof? Are there signs of drainage issues? Was there ever an oil tank? Were renovations done with permits or without? Is the electrical modernized? And is the plumbing something you should be aware of? That does not mean all older homes are bad. Some of the best homes in Saanich are older homes because they have incredible locations on beautiful lots with layouts and neighborhoods that are hard to replace. But you have to find balance with charm and being practical. It is easy to fall in love with a character of a home and ignore all the boring details. But the boring details are usually what protect you. This is especially important if the home has, say, a suite or suite potential. A mortgage helper can make a huge difference in Saanich because prices are high. But you want to understand, what are you actually buying? Is the suite authorized? Is it built properly? Does the layout make sense? Is the parking situation actually realistic? Would you actually want to live with that setup for a long term? And the same thing for condos and townhomes. A unit can look great, but the building still matters. You have to look at the STRAT documents, the maintenance history, the insurance, the bylaws, and the financial health of the building also matters a lot. So, when buying a Saanich, do not let the charm do all the talking. Enjoy the character, but make sure the home makes sense behind the scenes too. Now, we're at the halfway point, and during this time, if you had any questions, or if you've decided that you're looking to buy or sell anywhere in Greater Victoria, again, I'm G, my info's on the screen, feel free to call or text me anytime, and now let's continue with the video. Now, number 6. One of the biggest reasons people love Saanich is the access to parks, trails, beaches, and outdoor space. And this is not just, say, a small bonus. For a lot of people, this is the reason they choose Saanich. You have places like Mount Douglas, which is one of the most recognizable outdoor spaces in the area. You have Swan Lake, Cedar Hill, Cadboro Bay, Cordova Bay, and so many smaller parks spread throughout the different neighborhoods. And the nice thing about Saanich is that outdoor space often becomes part of your normal life. It's not always, say, some big weekend plan. It might just be walking the dog through a nearby trail, taking your kids to the park after school, or going for a quick hike before dinner. Walking around Cedar Hill, heading to the beach for a slower evening, or getting, say, outside for a short break because nature is actually close enough to use. That is a big part of the Saanich lifestyle. It feels residential and practical. But are you still connected to nature? That is one of the differences between Saanich and some other places. You're not always choosing between, say, convenience and outdoor access. In many pockets, you can have both, but again, it depends on where you live. If being close to trails or beaches is a major reason you're moving here, then you want to pay attention to, say, the exact location. For example, living near Mount Doug gives you a very different outdoor routine than living near Uptown. Living in Cordova Bay is different from living near the Gorge, and living near Cedar Hill is different from living in, say, rural Saanich. All those can be great, but the lifestyle is not identical. So, when you're choosing a neighborhood, think about how you actually want to use the area. Are you the type of person who, say, wants to be near the beach and go to the ocean and wants that nearby? Or do you want forested trails? Do you want walkable parks for your kids? Do you want, say, a flatter area because you like biking? Or maybe you just want quick access to rec centers? Because the answer will help you narrow down Saanich down to a way that actually makes sense. Number 7. Saanich is very well located, but that does not mean every commute is easy. This is one of those things that people sometimes underestimate. Look at the map and think, oh, this home is only a short distance from downtown Victoria. Or, this looks like it's close to UVic. Or, this seems pretty central. And sometimes, it is. But the real question is not just distance. It is how that drive actually feels at the time of day you're actually doing it. Saanich has a lot of major roads running through it. You have Mackenzie, Shelburne, Quadra, Blanchard, Douglas, Tillicum. You even have the Pat Bay Highway. These are roads that a lot of people rely on every day. And because Saanich sits in such a central position, it gets traffic from all directions. People are going downtown, people are heading to UVic, people are going to Peninsula, people are going to, say, the West Shore, going to school, shopping, appointments, work, and recreation. So while it's not, say, Vancouver level traffic, it can still be annoying, especially during peak hours. This is why I always think buyers should map out their actual life not just the distance to downtown. So let's say if you're working downtown, test the commute. If your kids will be going to a school nearby, think about morning drop off. If you're going to UVic, Commutes, the hospital, or the West Shore, often look at how that route actually works. A home can be amazing, but if every normal part of your week becomes a frustrating drive, that can wear on you. Parking is also another thing you have to think about. Some Saanich homes have great driveways and lots of space. Others are on narrower streets, steeper lots, or areas where parking can feel very tight than expected. And with condos and townhomes, do not just assume that the parking situation will automatically work for your household. One stall might be fine for some people, but not for everyone. So the simple version is this. Saanich is central and convenient, but the exact location still matters a lot. Do not just look at how close something appears on a map. Think about what your actual daily routine will look like. Number 8. Saanich is one of those areas that a lot of families are drawn to, and it makes sense. You have established neighborhoods, parks, schools, recreation centers, sports fields, and quieter residential streets. Plus, in many areas, you have a more settled-in community feel. For a lot of families, Saanich gives a nice balance. You aren't necessarily right in downtown, but you're also not far away from everything. You can have a more residential lifestyle while still being connected to the city. That is a major reason why neighborhoods like Gordon, Royal Oak, Broadmead, Cordova Bay, Cedar Hill, and other parts of Saanich are so popular with families. But this is where the details really matter. Not every Saanich neighborhood gives you that same family experience. Some areas are actually quieter and feel more tucked away. Some are closer to schools, some have, say, better park access, and some are better for biking or walking. Otherwise, some are closer to shopping and recreation, and some are more affected by traffic. But you also have ones close to UVic, which can change the rental demand and the general feel of the neighborhood. So, if you are moving with kids, the house itself is only part of the decision. The street matters, the route to the schools matters, the nearby parks matter. Plus, the commute for both parents matters as well. The activities of kids can affect things too, and even the small things like whether the road feels safe to walk on, or whether the neighborhood has sidewalks can make a big difference once you actually live there. This is also why it can be helpful to visit the neighborhood at different times. A street may feel peaceful during a showing, but very different during, say, school pickup, rush hour, or a busy weekend. And the opposite can also happen. Some neighborhoods may look like flashy online, but once you spend time there, you realize they are incredibly practical and livable. And that is one thing about Saanich. It's not always about the flashiest area. Sometimes the best neighborhood is the one that quietly makes your life easier every day. Number 9. Saanich has a lot of convenience. You have shopping centers, grocery stores, rec centers, schools, parks, medical offices, restaurants, and so much more. Plus, you have access to different parts of Greater Victoria by driving or transit. And depending on where you live, you may be close to Uptown, Tillicum, Broadmead Village, Royal Oak Shopping Centre, University Heights, and other, say, smaller local plazas. So from a practical standpoint, Saanich can be very easy to live in, but convenience and walkability are not the same. This is something people sometimes miss. In some parts of Saanich, you may be close to everything by car, but not necessarily walking distance too much. That can be perfectly fine if you want to stay a quieter neighborhood, a larger yard, or more privacy. But if you're looking for a place where you are used to, say, walking to coffee, walking for groceries, restaurants, and daily errands, you should pay attention to this, because some pockets of Saanich are much better than, say, other parts. For example, being near certain corridors of shopping centers or areas can give you more walkabilities. But if you're tucked away in a quiet residential area, your day-to-day life may be more car dependent. Neither option is wrong, but it just depends on what you want. Some people want a peaceful street and do not care if they have to drive, say, 5 or 10 minutes for errands. Other people would rather give up space if it means they can walk to more things. The problem happens when someone assumes they are getting both, and then they realize after moving in that their lifestyle does not quite match the location. That is why it's so important to be honest with yourself before buying. Are you really going to walk places from this home? Are you comfortable driving for most of your errands? Are you going to bike? Will you take transit? Will your kids be able to get around? And does this area feel practical in the rain, in the winter, or when you're really busy? Because it is easy to imagine the ideal version of your lifestyle when you're just looking at homes. But you want to buy based on how you actually live, not how you hope you will live. Now, the final thing you need to know is that buying in Saanich usually comes down to trade-offs. And this is where a lot of people and buyers get stuck. Because Saanich has so many good things going for it that people naturally, they want everything. They want the quiet street, the good location, the nice house, the bigger yard, the updated interior with the suite near the school catchment they want that is walkable, private, near the ocean, and the price still has to feel reasonable. But in reality, most buyers have to compromise somewhere. That is not a negative thing. That is just how the market works. You might get the neighborhood you love, but the home needs updating. You might get a larger lot, but the house is older. You might get a newer townhouse, but not the detached home you wanted. You might get the ocean proximity, but the price is higher. Or you may get the quiet street, but you're farther away from, say, daily amenities. And maybe you need the suite, but the layout is not perfect. The key is figuring out which trade-offs are acceptable and which ones are deal breakers. And that is very different depending on the person. Because for some people, location is everything. They will happily renovate over time if it means they get into the right neighborhood. But for others, the condition of the home matters way more. They do not want projects, so they may be willing to live in a different pocket to get something more move-in ready, while some buyers care most about, say, schools and parks. Some care about the commute, privacy, future resale value, and some care about having a suite just to help with the mortgage in general. There is no universal right answer, but there is a wrong approach. And that is trying to buy in Saanich without understanding what matters most to you. Because if you're not clear on your priorities, every home will feel confusing. One home may have a location you like, but not the updates. Another has the updates, but not the yard. Or another has a yard, but not the commute time you want. Or the suite, but not the layout. And suddenly, every option feels like a maybe. The buyers who do best are usually the ones who know the top priorities before they even started looking. Because once you start looking and you're serious about it, you want to understand what you're looking for. They understand what they are willing to bend on and what they cannot. That is how you avoid getting distracted by the wrong homes. And in Saanich, that matters a lot. Because there are so many different pockets and property types that it's really easy to pretty much chase everything. But the right home is not always the one that checks every box. Sometimes the one that fits your lifestyle is the best one. So those are 10 things you need to know before moving to Saanich BC. And I want to be clear, this is not meant to scare you away from Saanich. Saanich is one of the most desirable and practical places to live in Greater Victoria, and there's a reason for that. You have access to parks, schools, beaches, shopping, rec centers, established neighborhoods, and depending on where you live, you can be close to downtown Victoria, UVic, the ocean, or quieter residential areas. But Saanich is not one size fits all. The biggest mistake you can make is treating like Saanich is the same everywhere. Because the lifestyle in Gorge is very different from Broadmead. Broadmead is different from Cordova Bay, and Cordova Bay is different from Tillicum. And Tillicum is very different from rural Saanich. And all these areas can be great, but it depends on what you're looking for. So, before moving here, spend some time. Understand the neighborhoods, the housing types, the commutes, the prices, and what your trade-offs are. And if you think about buying or selling anywhere in Saanich or Greater Victoria, feel free to reach out anytime. You can call or text me anytime you like. No pressure at all. I'm G. My info is on the screen. Happy to chat, happy to help. And I like to help people understand what the different neighborhoods, what to watch out for, and what actually makes sense based on their situation. So don't hesitate to reach out anytime. And if you found this video helpful, or if you have any questions, feel free to like, drop a comment about what you think, and subscribe for future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.